Good morning, I'm Chris Fox, and today we're going to talk about writing great characters. Now, this is something near and dear to my heart. I feel like I've struggled in the past when working on characters, but in the last few novels, I've really had some light bulb moments that have helped me understand how to quickly and easily create a character, especially those difficult side characters that tend to kind of come out wooden in a plot. So you'll have a minor character, and this character will be nothing more than a few words on the page, and they won't really have any punch to them. They won't stick with the reader. So I've learned kind of how to alter that and make a character, a side character that is compelling, because ultimately in your story, if every character, even the little ones, are compelling, you're far more likely to capture and hold reader attention. So today we're going to go over exactly how I do that. We're going to take an example of a side character that I created, and I'm going to show you how I breathe life into them, how I made them easy for me to write so that whenever they're in a scene, they tend to steal that scene, but I don't have to spend hours and hours and hours figuring out who this person is. So I followed the 3-act structure pretty closely. I spent a lot of time looking at Joseph Campbell's work and the archetypes that he explained. And one of them that I'm using in this particular project is the mentor. So I've got a character that is going to mentor my protagonist. And they're not in the book all that much. They're not going to be a huge character, but they are very important, and I need them to really shine and to convey a lot of different things to the reader. This character, we're going to think of him kind of as a drill sergeant because he is shepherding a bunch of cadets through some really hasty training before throwing them into a combat that will almost certainly kill them. And I really need to capture this mentor character and what doing this with class after class has kind of done with him. So I sat back and I thought, how is that going to shape somebody? But when I'm looking down at the blank page, nothing came. And so I decided I needed some inspiration. So I started looking at other mentor characters in different IPs to see if I could find somebody who fit. So the first one that I looked at was Haymitch from The Hunger Games. This is something I think most people are probably familiar with. And if you remember Haymitch, he's an alcoholic, he's broken down, he's not willing to oppose the Capitol, he's given up on life. And this, I decided, was not what I wanted to convey to my readers. I don't want this character to have given up. So I looked around a little further and I found Dark Tory from Spartacus. Now this guy is a slave who still buys into the establishment and the natural order of things. He's totally okay with being a slave. He's a great character that a lot of people root for, but the message that he's getting across doesn't quite fit with what I'm looking to put into my character. So I kept looking, and I found this in the most unlikely of places, and I would encourage you to look at this because you'll see it's not even the same genre. I picked Dr. Cox from the television show Scrubs to serve as the mentor character. Now, what's the link between a drill sergeant that is going to shepherd cadets into battle and a cantankerous, funny Asian guy past his prime in a hospital training doctors? Well, really it comes down to the pressures that have shaped this character and what I want to convey. Because Dr. Cox, despite the fact that he has seen the establishment and how corrupt it is for 20 plus years, he's watched doctors burn out, he's had tragedies and bitter divorce and all sorts of terrible things happen to him, and he is filled with rage, but Dr. Cox has never given up. He stuck to his principles the entire time. And how he expresses that is through witticisms, which obviously viewers of the show love, and I'm hoping my readers will love if I do something similar in the novel. So Dr. Cox seemed like the perfect kind of template for me to use, and I'm changing a lot about it. The gender is the same, although that could be different. You could make it a woman if you were doing your own character. But because I'm writing fantasy, I have the luxury of changing the race. And so there's a race of characters in my world who are Tengu. They're from Japanese mythology. They're raven people. And so my Dr. Cox is going to be a raven person with a completely different name than Dr. Cox. The things that he says will not be the same. I'm obviously using fantasy dialogue instead of what you'd find in your average hospital episode of Scrubs. But the important takeaway and what's allowing me to use this as a template for the character is the understanding of the pressures that have shaped this man to be who he is. I'm going to have my main character share the same thing. So this character that I'm creating is angry. They're angry at the establishment, but they've never given up. They still want to save these kids that they're training. despite the fact that wave after wave of them has died, and they have to watch as the people they're trying to keep alive and give the tools necessary to survive are just wiped out. And how my character is going to express himself, I'm going to try and come up with funny witticisms in the same way that Dr. Cox would. So ultimately, when readers pick this book up, there'll be no way for them to link it back to the original inspiration, but I'll be able to capture kind of the things that make that character great and express them in my own way. So I guess the long-winded takeaway for this video is when you are trying to make a character fill a specific role in a book, try to figure out the message that they're getting across, how you're using them, and then look in your favorite book or movie or somebody you know in real life and use them as a template. You could very cleverly disguise that usage. It's not plagiarism. You're just using it for inspiration. You're just using it as a starting point. And really, when you're writing characters, to me, that is the hardest thing. You're staring at a blank page. Where do you go from here? So feel free to mine your daily life, the forms of entertainment that you use, and everything that happens around you to form the kernel for great characters. And there's a lot more to the process, but we'll explore that over the next few weeks in a few videos that are kind of going to drill down into how you capture a real character and get life into them. So we'll talk next week about the protagonist. If you have questions on what I've covered here, please feel free to post in the comments, and I will do my best to get you some explanations.